It's the middle of winter, Aotearoa, and we have to open our windows and doors for ventilation. I'm Catherine Lightner, CEO of Asthma New Zealand, and I'm on a mission to help you understand what a healthy home is. We're going to travel up and down the country. We're going to go and have a look at what's being done to improve the health of the houses that we live in. Is it possible in Aotearoa? Because it hasn't been for the last 4 decades. COVID-19's taught us many things. Oh yes, it's highlighted how important our freedom is. However, it's also highlighted how important air quality is. Once upon a time in New Zealand, ventilation was simply opening a window or a door. What we're realising now is that that's not enough. And so we're going to understand, what does ventilation look like? How do you and I use it so that it keeps our internal environment healthy? And of course, when that environment's healthy, we're a whole lot healthier. Today, we're going to speak to somebody who knows more about air quality than probably most of us. Tether have devices that enable you and me to see what's going on in our homes. When Tether embarked on this journey, did you understand just how poor the air quality was in New Zealand homes?
No idea. Tether started with a question, which is the models that we create around building performance correct? Are they the right models? Are our building designers, are our healthy home assessors, are our architects designing homes that actually perform well? The problem was there was no data to prove whether they performed well or not. So you were buying a piece of paper that said, yes, this home is meant to perform in this particular way. But when it came to it and people moved in, it was shown that it didn't. It was cold, damp and moldy. And I wanted to try and find a way to prove that a home performed in a particular way through data, through evidence.
What would you describe air quality to be?
There's a sweet spot across the major aspects of air quality, which are things like temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, volatile organic compounds, particulate matter, a bunch of other things as well that make up our air. And each one of the things that we measure have a sweet spot for human consumption or comfort.
Should I be really worried about the air quality in my house?
Air quality is so misunderstood because we don't see it. It's not a tangible thing. We can smell it when it's really bad and we feel it when it's really stuffy. But it's in some respects seen as an objective thing that's uncontrollable. And that's what's daunting about air quality. The level of control that people believe they have is really small. But in actual fact, there's a lot that you can do.
Back in Wellington, I don't need too many excuses to come down here because the coffee is exceptional. But I need to go and understand about this air quality thing with brands. So that's where we're heading. I am fascinated. What is going on here? I've been watching the smoke and it's mesmerising. What are you doing here, Manfred?
This is for demonstration purposes, basically, of how much air goes through a 1 centimeter hole in the ceiling, because it's hard to see air moving. And this was a method of being able to show how it flows and what it does and how fast it actually flows.
So that's a 1 centimetre hole, and that's how much air is escaping out through our ceiling.
Yeah, and air is one of the biggest moisture transport paths inside the building. So often people talk about diffusion of moisture, but that is a very slow process, about 100 times slower than air.
So air is a very efficient process for carrying moisture?
Yeah, it can hold moisture as a gas, basically, so water vapor. And then it can transport that all through the house, basically. It could start in the subfloor, moves indoors, and then ends up in the attic.
This is New Zealand homes we're talking about. And so most of them are pretty moist. So what would be happening is this warm air would be condensing in the ceiling cavity.
It can. If you accumulate moisture over time, then it stays behind, and then it can cause sort of mold growth and things like that.
Yeah. Manfred, now isn't this a classic Kiwi scene? Moisture on the windows, crying windows. How does this occur?
It has to do with the relative humidity in the air inside the room. And when that air then hits a surface that is too cold, like a glass, for instance, then it condenses out because it can't hold that much moisture, so it has to let go of it.
So the warm air from the room that we've heated up finds its way to a cold surface. The cold surface can't hold as much moisture, it condenses. So Manfred, on a window this size, roughly how much moisture or how much water would be contained?
On a window this size, is a wee bit larger than a square meter, I think probably about 100 milliliters.
So every day 100 millilitres will be coming off this window?
Yeah, if the water evaporates, gets into the gas phase basically and stays in the air.
And so as it evaporates, it's going to go into the bedding, it's going to go into the fabric of that room. Is one of the consequences mould?
Yeah, if moisture persists, so that can give rise to mold growth, yeah.
So how do we deal with this problem in our homes?
It's an indication that either those surfaces are too cold or that too much humidity is in the air, so we ventilate it.
Now you might be as surprised as I was to know just how much moisture is in our home every day. It's about 10 litres. 10 litres we generate every day comes from cooking, from boiling the kettle, boiling a pot of potatoes, the microwave, obviously the shower is a major source of moisture, and washing, drying our clothes indoors, but also breathing, whether it's us or our pets. All of that moisture is in our home. And if it doesn't go somewhere, it will condense. And where moisture condenses, mould will grow. And mould gives off these tiny spurs that go into our respiratory system and can trigger an asthma attack or even create asthma. So let's find out how we use ventilation to manage condensation in our homes. Ventilation, something that most Kiwis have only ever seen as windows and doors. It goes without saying that when I'm outdoors, when I'm in nature, ventilation isn't an issue. Of course, we spend 69% of our time indoors. So how do we make sure that our indoor space is ventilated as well as our outdoor space? So Stephen, this is a blower door test. What do you use this blower door test for?
So what we actually do with a blower door is it allows us to depressurise the building so we can start to look for what air leaks happen around the place. And that's a pretty big contributor to the amount of energy loss, especially in our older building stock. Our newer building stock is tending to be a bit more airtight, with a few things needed to bring it up to a good level internationally, but our older stock, they are quite leaky.
I would imagine though, if the building's too tight, you've got a whole new raft of issues.
Oh, regardless of how airtight we're building, we need to make sure we ventilate properly.
Well, hey, let's get this blower door test set up because we're going to have a look in this building to see where some of the leakage is. So what do you want me to do, Stephen?
So if you could grab that red hose there and take that through the door, and I'll stick the frame in place.
Fabulous.
And we can start to get underway. Okay.
So we've got one little issue.
Yeah, what's that?
You're in there and I'm out here.
Whoops.
Oh gee, oh boy. Right, okay. Fabulous. This is what I have to do. An A-class movie star crawling on the ground. So Stephen, this is now sucking all the air out, or is it bringing it in?
At the moment, it's sucking air out of the building. You can see the cloth's pulling towards you because we're depressurising the building.
Okay.
It's a bit like a bouncy castle in reverse. So what we'll do is put a little bit more pressure on, and we'll get the guys outside to put a bit of smoke.
Okay,
around.
so we can start to go and see where some of the leakage is.
Yeah.
This is what I thought they did out here. Boys having fun with big machines like this. Now, all things going well, this is going to work.
You can see the smoke coming through now.
There's a concrete foundation here. How's the air leaking?
You don't actually have a perfect seal when a bottom plate lands on your DPC on your slab. It ends up being a very, very thin crack the whole way around your building, and it can let quite a lot of air in and out.
So we could do this anywhere around the outside perimeter, and this is the amount of air leakage.
And that's one of the biggest leaks left in our modern buildings.
So the hot air will be going out through the top.
Yep.
Cold air coming out through the bottom.
Cold air coming in through the bottom plate and hot air going out through your ceiling.
Stephen, thank you so much for that. I was not expecting to see the leakage coming from underneath the house. There is so much more to building than simply whacking up a frame and putting some fancy jib on the outside.
It's about the design, it's about making sure you're tight enough so you're comfortable, you don't get all these cold drafts, but you still ventilate well for health.
I think what's so amazing at Brands here is just seeing the work that they're doing here. Every day getting research that makes our homes healthier. So many components to the health of our homes. The three most important and the ones we're focusing on: insulation, ventilation, heating. We're on Taupo today to understand about ventilation. And ventilation, if I could describe it in no other way but being like the lungs of our home, that's what filters the quality of the air in and out of the internal environment. So let's go understand the difference between positive ventilation, mechanical and balanced ventilation. Do you and I really need to be that concerned? Tony, tell me, in terms of ventilation, what is the role of ventilation in a house?
The role of ventilation is to control the amount of air that is changed in the house. In other words, air changing. When you take the air that's in the home and you make it leave the home, whether you extract it or you push it out or you open your windows and let it work through. Ventilation changes the air in the home. With it, you get rid of the pollutants that we build up in the home.
Is there any requirement in the New Zealand Building Code for ventilation other than windows?
Extract fans and range hoods, essentially they are required and they get a great result.
Yep.
But you're not ventilating the entire home. That's because most of those systems are intermittent. In other words, they just work when the room is moist.
And the occupant remembers to turn them on.
That's right, yes.
I hear all this mention of different types of systems, and it's somewhat confusing, especially as a consumer. What is a balanced ventilation system compared to the other one I hear mentioned all the time is positive ventilation? What's the difference between the two systems?
Probably the reason you hear positive pressure mentioned so often is because it's very popular. The key with positive pressure is keep the ventilation rate at a low level, less is more. MVHR or balanced pressure systems, they're trying to do the same thing. In our opinion, they're a superior system. The reason for that is because we can ventilate a home by pushing air into the home and extracting air from the home at a balanced rate, if you like. And we have a heat recovery or a heat exchange core which recovers a lot of the energy from the outgoing air.
So I think I understand the difference between positive and balanced ventilation. Let me see. Positive ventilation takes air from the ceiling cavity and pushes it into the house. That's its job. In order for that air to go out, it has to find its own way out. Whereas balanced ventilation takes air from the outside and brings it into the house, but it also takes air from the inside and takes it out of the house. So it balances up the flow in a controlled way.
Less is more. If in a positive pressure system, or even an MVHR system to some degree, if you try and over-ventilate the home, there is too much heat loss involved.
How can you over-ventilate your home? What, you just crank it right up?
You set the system up incorrectly, with the size of the home or how much warmth is in the home, and you overventilate. You just allow the fans to spin too fast and put too much air in or take too much air out of the house. Internationally, 35 to 50% of the air in the home is replaced in an hour. That is considered about the sweet spot for a healthy home. In other words, to retain the health of the occupants of the home, and also from an energy efficiency point of view.
Yes. The positive ventilation system, the thing I keep stumbling over with that is the fact that you can suck air from the ceiling cavity. And in my mind, I've never spring cleaned my ceiling cavity, so it feels like you're just pushing air down into the living space with a dusting of dirt.
I can see why you think that. Look, we obviously filter the air that comes into the home, and we've found a way with Lanaco to make a filter that's extremely efficient, but most importantly, affordable, and the customer can change it themselves. It's all about the filters. You need to change your filter regularly to make sure that air's coming out.
And when we talk about regularly, what are we meaning? Every sort of 6 weeks or 6 months, or?
Look, typically a year is nice and safe.
Right.
If you've got a system in, think 12 months. Some people will get longer out of their filter, but 12 months is the time when you should be changing it.
So, you know, I've invested into this positive ventilation system. Now I've got to pay my power bill every month. How much more is running this positive ventilation system going to cost me, a month on my power bill?
I can only talk for our systems. A positive pressure system will cost between $15 and $20 a year for an average size home.
A year?
A year. So we're talking a 3 or 4 bedroom home, 150 square metres odd. If it's a smaller home, it'll cost a little less. If it's a larger home, it'll cost a bit more.
I've seen what a balanced ventilation system looks like in the warehouse, but I want to see what does it look like actually in somebody's house. More importantly, how easy is it to maintain this thing? Can I change the filters? Ceiling cavities, a place I'm finding myself quite a bit. So I now understand the difference between a balanced and a positive ventilation system, but the real thing I want to know is how easy is it for me to change one of these filters? Or do I have to call somebody every time I need it done? So I've been told how to do it, and I've been left to my own devices. Let's find out. Okay, so apparently I need to prise this off, and voila. So you can see how filthy this is. I'm going to remove this, and it's actually quite easy. If you can do up your shoes, you can undo this. So just undoing the bow here, loosening it off a bit, and I'm going to just slide this off the cage. I'm going to try not to get it everywhere, but you can see it's pretty gross. I haven't got authority, and I'm fairly handy with one of these, but I should brush this thing out first. Wow! A nice new clean filter. So it's as simple as putting this over the cage like so, and these cages certainly make it so much easier to slide this filter on, tighten this around it, and it's as simple pushing it back in. There we go. One filter changed. Less than 5 minutes. What price are we willing to put on our family's health? Graham, why did you go through the expense of installing a ventilation system into your home?
Well, firstly, I didn't see it as an expense. I saw it as an investment in terms of making my family and my home healthier. So to me, that was a no-brainer. I bought a new house, new build, and as soon as winter came, so did the weeping windows. Condensation every morning, There I was with a wet towel, wiping down all the windows and wringing that over a bath.
And this is a new build.
New build. Every winter that came around, my wife started getting a cough and it just wouldn't go. Lasted the whole of winter. My son was playing football. He started wheezing. Went to the doctor. We recommend an inhaler, said the doctor.
So before you moved into that house, had your wife experienced that cough, or your son, was he having wheeze when he was playing football?
No, not at all. So I could only put it down to the home environment, the in-home environment.
Yeah.
And that was a moist environment.
Yeah. And so once you installed that ventilation system, you noticed an improvement?
Absolutely. The morning after it was installed, and it was installed in early winter, I had no condensation on my windows. That was the first sign.
As quick as that?
The morning after. My wife lost her little wheeze, her cough, within a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And my son never needed any support. Breathing was fine and he loved his football.
And you know, one has to wonder how many young kids are giving up sport, not because they don't enjoy it, but because the house that they're living in makes it uncomfortable for them to be great at it. Ventilation, I guess it's like the lungs of our house. And unfortunately, windows and doors no longer cut it. So we're needing to start thinking about introducing things like positive ventilation, balanced ventilation. And that's where you and I hopefully have a better understanding now of what the two systems are and why they're so important for our homes. Next time, we're going to look at heating. Why is it so important? What's the role that it plays in keeping our internal environment healthy for us? And what can you and I do to make sure that we can choose the best heating, which is affordable? So join us next time. Healthy Homes, let's make it a Kiwi Dream.